Charles is going to join me on for this last section and to help with the questions and answers as well. Fred would be here, but Fred is actually on a plane to the Dominican Republic as we speak. He's going to rebuild following the hurricanes of last year with a team from the British Isles, actually, representations from the whole of British Isles. So in his absence, his associates are on my left there, waiting in the wings to help answer some questions. But first of all, I just want to share a quick presentation on. Actually, I suppose because we just had the ADRA presentation, if I can just say at this point now, that the total amount. And I say total amount. Someone just literally give me 2 more envelopes. But as of an hour ago, the total that we've raised as BUC treasurers came to £1,062.61. Amen. Amen. Mr. President, I don't know if Ian's in the room. Ian, are you in the room as well? Oh, well, at least Richard was one president. We are treasurers who believe, and we have faith, and you can trust in us. So just to repeat, Star, correct me, so that's going to support, the first 500 going to support the project in Burkina Faso, and the second 500 will go to support the project in Nepal. Thank you all very, very much for your support this weekend, financial support in a very meaningful and tangible way. The rest of the announcement I come to at the end. So if we can go to the first of my slides, you'll see there, this is literally hot off the press. You'll see that we literally, in the last week, we were finally able to, so you've heard all the presentations on tithe and offerings and reports and what to do and how to process, etc. So for every single church in the British Isles, we have to receive 12 months reports from every single church for the tithe and offering reports for 12 months, and then reconcile all those tithe and offering reports to what was banked. So, you know, as an easy example, if you received £1,000, you should have banked £1,000. But that's the easy side. That's the theory. So, Brother Nana, Sister Joycelyn, Aftab, they do a tremendous work in ensuring that we provide accountability, first and foremost, evidence to the auditors, but ultimately to you, the members of the British Union Conference territory. So there you can see for the 2017, the total collected in the British Isles came to 22,580,000. So it's the middle section on left-hand side, 2017 column, 22,580,657 pounds. That's a tremendous return from the members. And as you go back to your churches, treasurers, please do continue to affirm the members in our churches for their faithfulness and stewardship in returning faithfully their tithe and offerings throughout the British Isles. You can see there for the South England Conference, 14,717,000. That's a 37,000 increase on last year. North England Conference, 6.3 million. That's a 404,000 increase on 2016. And because we've got some folk from the Welsh Mission here, 375,000, which equates to a £10,000 increase on 2016. Just to put the whole tithe story into context, how do we impact on the rest of the division? We as was explained throughout the weekend, we sit within a territory, one of the 13 world divisions called the Trans-European Division, which amongst others includes the Scandinavian countries coming down through Poland, Weather's going to correct me in a moment, Albania, etc. So we can turn to the second slide. You'll see there, I don't know, you don't have this slide in your packs, but this is a report that Wedderly, so I should have introduced Wedderly properly at the beginning of the weekend. I do apologise, Wed. Wedderly, if you don't mind standing up, he's a really, really good friend of mine. He worked in the South England Conference for how many years? 9 years. 9 years. I took him straight from, well, he started work while he was at university and came through. And then and then he got elevated to the Trans-European Division. He's now the Associate Treasurer of the Trans-European Division and part of the Treasury team at Stanborough Park Church. Thank you very much. So he produces this report that you see on the screen. As you can see, in the top left-hand corner, you'll see that quite clearly we are the highest returning union in the Trans-European Division field. There. If you look at the middle section, you know, statistics. Well, I'll point it out. But what Wedley's done here, he's actually come up with statistics to show how much per capita. So he converts all the European currencies into sterling, and then works out how much per capita. And you can see per capita, if you can, that Denmark. So whereas the British Union per capita is about £49.22 per person, okay, across the membership. But in Denmark, they return £73, and in Norway, £81 per person. To put it into context. So whilst we are the biggest union returning tithe in the Trans-European Division, we're actually third when we look at per capita by members in our territory. Then moving on to the third slide. Oh, sorry. Is everybody interested in receiving this? Does everybody? Yeah. I mean, perhaps if you can give me or give Wedley another week to do the year-end report. It's already got. I mean, we'll send it through the two conferences, and they'll email them out to you. Okay. I was just looking. I looked at my email this morning. I didn't quite see it this morning, but. He's a bit. No, I shouldn't say he started. We were the late ones. Okay, but thank you very much for all that you do, Wedley. And Sally, give us away. This is his wife, Sally. Hello, Sally. Okay, the next slide. So every month when we conclude the reports, this is the October report for the. Just to give you an example of what typically is produced. So this is the South England Conference October report, and you can see there for October their tithe was 12 million. But in yellow, you can see the other offerings that the members within the British Isles also contribute. Obviously, there's the World Mission, or Sabbath School, as it was formerly known as, 420,000 for the 10 months. 30 Sabbath offerings, birthday thank, and you can see all the various offerings that the members of the British Isles return on a monthly basis. Okay, so that's our income. Any questions on that before I move on quickly? Okay, let me move on. You can save your questions for the end. Now, so that's our time figures for 2017. How are those funds actually used? So if we turn to my last slide, you can see there. I don't know. Can that be enlarged somehow? Okay. So yeah, and then can it be slid? No, slid to the other way, so we can see the actual headings. It's really the headings I want you to see rather than the actual numbers. So again, I've used as a template. I've used the South England Conference template reporting template for you to have a look at. So you can see there the tithe figure is the first and main income that comes through the church through the conferences. Other sources of income that we receive, the missions, and so I'm talking generally now across the three missions, North and South England. We also receive interest. Interest has dropped dramatically. When I first, as recent as say 10, 12 years ago, interest in the South England Conference reached dizzy heights of about 800. So this is interest received. Dizzy heights of about £800,000 a year. You know, because we're talking about interest rates when interest rates were at 5%, 6%, 7%. Well, how much is base interest rate now? Is it 1? Really? It's a half of 1%. It's a half of 1%. It's a half of a percent. You know, so that £800,000, and so there would be similar figures for the North England Conference, has dramatically dropped to about. Candy probably be interest this year, probably about 200,000-300,000. about 100,000. So you can see that since 2008, when the whole financial world went pear-shaped, interest rates just plummeted to an all-time low. It's never been 0.25% as it was until recently. So that decimated the charity sector across the board. I mean, we were sustained because of our strong growth in tithe, but also gift aid. Gift aid, you know, after I did his presentation, but it's such a tremendous blessing. You know, even over this weekend, I've heard so many comments about from treasurers saying that, Charles, that members are still unhappy. They feel they have to, you know, it's not like the old deed of covenant system. Deed of covenant, you have to give your tax district reference number, your personal tax reference numbers, your address. With gift aid, as Aftab said, and a commitment for 7 years or 4 years, Marcus, is it now? Or it was. Nowadays, you just sign the gift aid and the money's flowing, as my predecessor Victor used to say. The funds are flowing, as you see, across you can see the funds that have come in gift aid and creating tremendous blessing across the economy. But interest rates, so other sources of income, just going down the list, you'll see rent. We have a number of properties around the territories that bring in rental income. One treasurer over breakfast was asking me, well, would the church allow us to buy a property to get rental income? So yeah, the church can afford it. The local church can afford it. What typically, in my experience, happens is the church is on a road, and then the house right next to it comes up, and whether we appreciate it or not, houses next to places of worship are kind of, if I can use the word, blighted, because people typically don't want to live in a house next to a church where there's, you know, a little bit of noise. So they kind of snap that property up if they can sort it. They go to their conference, or but it was a question from one of the missions. So yes, if you can afford it, because it will engender investment or additional or non-tithe income for you to use in your operations in your local church. Gift aid income we've talked about. Moving down, you see the BUC gives appropriations to the missions as well as the two conferences, and then the TD stroke General Conference also give grants to support evangelism, primarily evangelism Adventist Frontier Missions projects especially. So that's a profile of our income across the conferences and missions. How are those funds used? So in total, yes, whilst something like SEC has £50 million in tithe, it also has the best part about 2.5 to 3 million in gift aid. Do we know roughly what the gift aid is for? 2.5 last year. Do we have an idea what it is for this year? No. Okay, but we're roughly around about 17 to 18 million pounds in income. And how are those funds used? And similarly in an Orphan Conference and a mission, how are those funds used? The first section you'll see there, we operate a tithe sharing basis. So in the same way members pay tithe to the church, the low entities pay a tenth of their income of their tithe to the union, and we do the similar to the TD and GC. So, and then in the British Isles, the policy also that there's an initial 6% from the conferences and 3% from the missions towards the operations of the BUC. The pension fund there, 9%, 9.6%, TD 5%, General Conference 1%, and Newbold College 2% support of their operations there at 2%. I'll carry on through, and then, as I said, just write down your questions, and then you can answer them afterwards in a Q&A section. Then moving down, we talked about gift aid, how it's shared between the churches and put into a fund, a pot there to help churches. So in reality, you know, whenever I've ever been challenged on gift aid, and people said, well, how much, you know, the conference keeps a lot of the gift aid. I've always argued, I said, no, in one shape or form, all the gift aid goes back to the churches, because the 45 or 6%, whatever it is, plus all the funds that ultimately go back to the churches to help with your building acquisitions or refurbishment projects, etc. And that, friends, there is no other conference on this planet that is able to give that level of funds back to the churches in around the world territory, because we are blessed with the gift aid with the wisdom, if I could say that, of the British government, where they allow us the program of gift aid. Friends, we never know how long it's going to last. We never know how long it's going to last. You know, let's make full use of this program. Let's encourage our members to embrace the gift aid program, so we can maximise the returns from gift aid. Of course, moving down the next section, the biggest cost is obviously the salaries of our ministers, our workers within our fields. The second big section is obviously direct evangelism. So this is funds for direct evangelism across our fields, across churches and districts around the British Isles. All of the missions have departments, as well as the conferences. So those departments have to be resourced to fulfill their functions. So the youth departments, the personal ministries, Sabbath school, women's ministries, etc. So all those departments, there's funds allocated for the various departments of the conferences and missions. Publications. Can you see these? Yeah, we're going down. Althea's following me. So publication. So we the subsidies for the Messenger, Adventist Review, Encounter, Focus, Focus subsidies, etc. Those have to pay for. Conventions. The biggest event that a conference or mission will put out each year will typically be camp meeting. There'll also be they may arrange days of fellowships, and in like say this year in the Scottish Mission, there's a session that's going to happen in the autumn, so there may be sessions that happen. So we need to budget for those special conventions each year. Then we have schools. You know, we are, I think there was a statistic that was given to me. I think we're either the second or third largest education facilitator in the world. We're very big on education. So in the British Isles, we have, as you can see there, in the SEC, they have Fleetwood School, Highland House, Newbold School, and Little Eden. In the North England Conference, they have Dudley, and to a lesser extent, Charles, I don't know, do we actually give any support to Harper Bell? Minimal support, because it's a voluntary aided school, or is it VA school? And then in the British Union, we have the Stanborough Secondary School and Stanborough primary schools. So to support the operations in our schools, we give them grants. You'll see that on the grants. In the next section, you'll see other education grants. There's a fund there to support our young people going to Newbold. So not just theology students, any student who meets a certain criteria, that they are British, Adventist young person, going to Newbold College immediately can avail themselves of a 25% grant through the conferences and union. Then moving further down, we also have centres, evangelistic centres. So in the south, they have the Advent Centre. They've also got a campsite at Chapel Porth. We've seen on Sabbath morning the presentation of North Runcton. In the North England Conference, we have Aberdaron. West Midlands, would that be considered a centre? The Peace? In Birmingham? Yeah. Okay. And then, so there's various evangelistic centres, as we call them. And then in the final section, you'll see the insurance. We had a presentation from ARM, obviously to insure our properties, contents insurance, general liabilities, all the insurances that Graham and Giles talked so avidly about yesterday evening. The church, the conferences provide subsidies to help towards covering those insurance. So at that point, I will finish that presentation, and then if I can, if the microphone roving people can be available, then we'll start to take questions. Oh, one announcement.
All right. over the past few minutes I've been outside, a couple of treasurers have come to me and have said that you cannot close the training. Some of us are very new and we want to do what is right. I've listened to you. I work around my treasurers because I know you are all volunteering. There will be 2 more training. Pauline will be sending a letter out. I'm talking to those of you from the south, and whoever responds first probably will take 20 at a certain. It will be at South England Conference. It normally starts from 10:30, finishes around 2:30, 3 o'clock, and lunch is provided. So when Pauline sends out the email, please respond, and I'll make sure I help you all get trained. Is that okay? Thank you very much.
Okay, questions. Okay, there's one in the blue shirt at the front here, Mike. Sorry. I think it's quicker. I think it's quicker if we just take the mics to them because they'll have to find their way. Yeah, I mean, the suggestion's been, if you've got questions, maybe come to the mic, like we do at session. Yeah, so we can gauge how many questions we got. Yeah, so let's take your question. But if other people with questions, if you come to the mic, perhaps.
Tell them as well, if your question has already been let it come again. Okay. So if somebody has, you understand?
Okay, go ahead. If the questions have been asked before, let's try to come up with new questions as well. Okay, right, go ahead.
I've got 2 questions. One of them relates to the previous speaker, Mr. Elder Dav. I noticed that he touched quite a bit on SOP and FRS 102.
Yep.
What I simply need to know is, as conferences, do we already have some set of guidance that are available for the local churches so that at least as treasurers, they know to what extent they are expected to prepare or more so, maybe produce financial statements? Because when we look at the SOPs and the FRS 102 and stuff like that, because he talked about producing an income and expenditure. But with some churches, you'll find that some can prepare on a cash basis, but with some, they need to prepare on a accruals basis. So maybe what we need to have as conferences is some set of guidance that are standardized across all our conferences so that at least when we take over, we know what to do. Then my second element relates to...
Can I take one at a time? So on the reporting, is Marcus still in the room? Marcus? He's gone. Okay. I mean, when I've gone around auditing, I've worked with the ability of the treasurer who I'm auditing. If you look to the back of your manual, you'll see some templates of suggested formats for your present. So pages 29 and 30 in the manual. So there's suggestion of how you can. We got some spare manuals down here if anybody didn't get. Or at the end, if you want to take some for your fellow treasurers. Have you got one? Have you got a manual? Okay. Atab, can you give the lady in the blue mic a manual? So these are, because we don't want to make it too complicated, because what we want to, what we try to suggest as in this template is that as a format that will be easily digestible for all the lay folk on your typical church boards. So everybody can understand, everybody can read it, and so that everybody can engage in the financial report. There's no point in producing something that's highly convoluted and 90% of the board don't know what you produced. So this is what we feel a simple suggestion of what to produce to your board. Second question.
My second question really is like an observation, but we need guidance. As we all aware, on the 25th of May, there is the introduction of the GDPR rules. So as treasurers, we are deemed to be in possession of highly sensitive data. So I need to know if there is some kind of guidance or guidelines that we need to do as treasurers.
Again, my colleague Pastor John Surridge, Executive Secretary of the BUC, He's driving that, and he will work with the conferences to get releases out to the churches so that you're aware what needs to happen. So, GCAS will also give Viv. Microphone? That's the cue, is it? Okay. Okay. There's a mic over here, Viv. No, I'll take your question while Viv's coming to the mic.
Thank you. My question is about gift aid. I actually have two questions. It's a great blessing that the government now gives us the opportunity to receive gift aid from our small donations of up to £8,000. However, for those of us who bank our local budget offering within our own private church account, how do we claim gift aid?
If Aftab, can you answer that? Aftab knows how to process.
The best practice will be that, when you fill up your pink sheets, if you can, put your, make an entry of your loose offering, and then you have to bank it, and we have to send you back that. So it will be in and out from the charity. Unfortunately, if we claim anything from the HMRC, we need, they want to see the money hitting the main charity account, and then, we return. That is your money. The conferences will not keep it. It's just, for the best practice, we have to do in and out from the charity account.
We use Church Pearl.
Say the question again.
And my other question is, for donors who are on benefits, can they actually get gift aid, claim gift aid?
It's in majority of cases, the answer is no. So I think, what I say to, people, the treasurer, some treasurers may be able to calculate your personal tax liability. Are you actually paying tax? But to avoid all that, if they're on benefits, I would suggest no.
Okay.
So
Okay. Thank you.
Inform your conference or your mission. Inform your conference or your mission that they are no longer paying tax. Oh, yes, I'll alternate. So go ahead.
I'm just new to this, but I've been asked quite a few times, and I would like to know, please, how soon it takes the money to come back from you into our accounts, because we've had 5 months, 6 months.
So this is Bournemouth, isn't it?
Yes.
Bournemouth. So Candy, Anne, can you answer that? So the question is when the
gift aid, how long it takes the gift aid
Oh,
money
okay.
to come back.
So typically, if I can go through the process, so the conference treasurers will complete their returns for, say, December and get into the conference or the mission before the end of January, say. By the end of January, the conference or mission would then send off a claim to the Inland Revenue, and then typically a month later. So the January gift aid will typically come in a 2 month time frame, typically.
Okay. Thank you.
If the conferences are up to date.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's if they're up to date. But if they're not up to date, then... But once they're up to date, it's typically 2 months.
Just 2 months.
2 months.
Thank you.
Just by way of the North England Conference, gift aid is something that we're very much on top of. Joycelyn, who claims it, she claims gift aid. Basically, once we get your report and we know who the claimants are, etc., we don't send that money back to our churches. We post it to their trust account, right? And where we need to improve, and I said that to our treasurers last night, you must have your report every quarter so you can see all the credit transactions as well as debits. Also, at any time, if you want to know what is in your statement, what you can just simply call us and we will send you, because obviously it takes time to obviously get all the transactions posted. But we don't, at the NEC, we actually, that money is held in trust for our churches. Whenever they need it, it's available, etc., etc. So not a major issue, just reporting more regularly.
Candy, are you able to say how far back we are, how up to date we are with the gift aid for the SEC treasurers? Oh, Kerry Ann, yes. Sorry, you was pointing. I didn't know he was pointing at. Kerry Ann, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so for SEC, I'm sure we're aware that we're actually working through a backlog at the moment. So the last amount that was claimed was August. So we are claiming, we're claiming September, and we're actually processing October at the moment. So as it comes in, it will come out for the churches.
I'm going to be humble, and I'm not going to say we've just claimed December 2017. But we're smaller. We're a much smaller conference. Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. I have a few requests and I think maybe a couple questions.
Is that the book?
Not everything on it. Right. So firstly, regarding the gifted, I just wanted to request if when funds are transferred into the trust fund account, if that details could be sent to the local church so that we could then reconcile, for example, for the ones that we're expecting if we have not received for those.
Okay, that's fine.
Also, to do with the trust fund, what we tend to see happening is that whenever we complete the reconciliation for a period, we then notice sometimes that transactions are then posted back in the trust fund account. So we just want to request that if this could be avoided. So if, for example, at the end of December you sent us a statement, in January or February, don't then go back and enter any transactions into that period.
And that's a fair comment.
Yeah.
Sometimes, because obviously, as you can appreciate, when we come or approaching the end of the tax year, sometimes we pick up things that needs to be accrued or whatever it is, and we're in the new period physically already. So the real issue is, let's give us a chance to finish everything before we send what we will consider a final end-of-year statement as far as your trust count is concerned. But you are right. If we find corrections and stuff, we have to make sure it's reflected and reflected timely as well.
So are you saying then, in the trust fund account, it's not cash? Is it based on accruals, as you're saying?
No. It's real money. We've claimed the money. The revenue is very good so far as the North England Conference is concerned. We get the money back pretty quickly, right? And so we are physically receiving that money. It is then held in trust based on the individual claims for the individual churches, and obviously the NEC's portion, which is 40%. But no, it's real money, and it's So, but I hear what you're saying. I think if I hear you clearly, and maybe others are hopefully hearing the same, you're saying sometimes you've already had a statement.
Yeah.
Then you have a further statement and then you see something that went back to the previous month or year. Yes.
Yeah. And then I would just like to request, if it is possible, to get timely statements, maybe at the end of each month, because we do report to the church board at the end of each month.
Okay. For the NEC, I can only answer for the NEC. At the moment, I think the very best we can do is quarterly. But as I said, if any particular church rings and asks, we will try and help. Remember I mentioned earlier, you need to have a sense of what gift aid you should be getting for the reports you've sent in. So when you have a board meeting or business meeting, just say, look, I have already provided for what I'm expecting for these months, which I'm already reporting for. But you should be getting that money placed in your trust account once it comes through. Okay?
Yeah.
It's a time lag between posting and the actual.
Right. So my two questions now are, those were the requests. Sorry, I'll be quick. So the first one is, because what we're trying to do, we're trying to encourage people to use online payment. So what it means, therefore, if someone decide to join the gift aid, we would like to know what information should we give to them to ensure that it is claimed and it is returned to the church.
Okay. You're talking banking, that is you're
online
sending
payment
by
directly to the conference.
Brilliant. Still real money. What must happen is we need to be able to identify who paid the money.
Yeah.
We need to have and the name should tell us that you're a gift aider. Okay?
Yeah.
And all the details in terms of you being sometimes what doesn't happen that needs to happen. In preparation of your payment, alert us that we are going to be getting regularly from you £1,000 every month. Tithe is so much, local budget is so much. Because one of the issues I think many of our treasurers have is that there is money that should be coming back to their local church for those who are banking online, coming to the NEC or to the SEC. If we haven't got the breakdown, we can't give that information.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
what I would suggest to anybody who is asking members to go online, let them tell you that they intend to do so. Then you as the treasurer say, look, are you going to gift aid that? Are you going to tell us via the conference how it's to be distributed? And it will be sorted.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, just put the gift aid number in the reference as you're
Okay.
doing
That
it.
makes sense.
Brilliant.
Yeah, because it comes out in a spreadsheet, so we'll need the
Okay.
number.
So
Yeah.
at the SEC, what we used to request, as what Carrie had said, that put the gifted number in the reference.
Okay.
Plus, we also, encourage the donors when they start, sending their, donations online or standing order or, directly to the conference. If they can email at the SEC Nana Boni or Anne Swaby, their name,
Let us know.
their gifted number, any
That's right.
breakdown, if they're sending like £200,
Yeah.
150 for the tithe, 50 for the local budget. If they give us all that information,
We will know.
we will process it accordingly.
That's right.
But if they don't give us any information, we will just treat it as general SEC or NEC tithe.
That's correct.
So they have to send us an email with their, if their amount changes every month and the breakdown amount changes every month, unfortunately, they have to update us on a monthly basis. If the amount is fixed, they have to send it the email just for once.
Okay?
So lastly,
All right.
the 15%
Okay.
that goes back to the local area church. How is that distributed?
Okay. Maybe someone. Okay. SEC. Anybody from the SEC here? Up top. You want to deal with that? Okay.
In the South End Conference, 50% goes in the same way
area.
churches have a trust account. All the area districts in the South End Conference have a trust account, and it goes into a trust account for them to use as and when they need it.
So as, for example, our church, if we wanted to use from it, what do we need to do?
So which is your church?
Brixton Church.
Brixton.
Yeah.
So you apply to Area 6B. So you need to find out from your pastor who the Area 6B. Well, your pastor will be on that committee anyway. So any requests from your church can go to that committee
Okay.
through your pastor.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If we can restrict ourselves to maximum 2 questions. One question. One question, because the folk. I promised them they could have the afternoon off.
I have no requests, and I have one question. My question pertains to the ADRA appeal presentation. I hope that's okay. It's not so much regarding the treasurer's part of it, but the element about the option to claim 10% back. I feel uneasy about that option being provided to churches. I think it's potentially a reputational risk for ADRA at a time when the eyes of the world are on the charity sector. Where I'm coming from is that we go on the doorstep saying we are collecting for kids in Cambodia. We are not telling those people that if you give us enough, we'll take 10%. And then we raise whatever amount we raise, and then later on, we make a claim and get the money back. The press gets hold of that information, it will be on the front pages, and I just think it's a risk. Could that be, has that risk been considered and mitigated against? And if it happens, is it really worth it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. It's a very important question, actually. We did think about...
Okay, can we, I know can we just listen, please?
Yeah, we did consider the risks involved, which is why if you are to claim the 10% reversion, there are rules. There's a contract that your church is to sign with us. So how you use that money needs to be in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You can't just go in and buy footballs with that money. It needs to work. It needs to be used to improve the lives within the community. And you need to report back to us. We need to see evidence that the money has been used accordingly. So, there is some governance and review that will take place. We're not going to just issue the money and just say, here it is in your bank account. Like I said, there's some guidelines as to how the funds are going to be used.
Okay.
I hope this answers your question. You need to join the queue.
Can I make a point here? When it was introduced, the 10% was introduced to us when we had our field leaders meeting. One of the key to the 10%, which is good for us when we collect in Britain, is that for the first time, we can able to say to them openly on the door, a portion of this will go back to your community. And we see it as a very big advantage in the sense that a lot of people were being turned off the mere fact that everything we collect were going abroad. Now we can say openly,
Honestly,
a portion of what we collect will go back to our local community. The 10% is just a benchmark for them to return to us. So even though we're not saying to them that 10% will come back to the local church, all we are saying to them, a portion of what you give will now come back to your local area. The church now, in its development, will say, okay, we're going to run a soup kitchen for this area, and that money which comes back will be a part of what runs the soup kitchen. So you go out and you invite the community to come, and they have already paid for their soup, so you give them free.
Okay, it's 1 o'clock now, so I'm gonna. This will be the last four. Is it four? So is it just you four, and then we have to close. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, we were told that at our church, we're only a small church, but we were encouraged by, I think, Sister Grace. We were encouraged that it's a good idea for us to set up a community services department, and then that department could actually run the soup kitchen that we're doing, and by that way we could benefit. Anyway, my question is this, and it's probably a strange one, and it's not one that I think we're going to solve tomorrow. But what? Yeah, my question is this. I know we're not going to be able to solve it straight away, but with times changing and all organizations are doing things differently, the banks, they are closing down, whether we like it or not. And sometimes some of our treasurers are probably more elder than I am. And as a way of making things easier and better for us, is it time, has the time come then for the conferences and the union to look at more than one banks? So that is to say that, suppose the North England Conference where I'm from, we have NatWest and HSBC, for instance. That would then give the local treasurers the option to say, well, look, it's best if you send me a HSBC one, then I can bank closer to home.
Okay.
Is that a possibility?
We've got a question. Yeah, I mean, just like ADRA, they've identified the post office. In the south, the HSBC are also negotiating with the post office so that the treasurers can bank in the post office as well. And I'm sure Charles has made a note of it to have discussions within that West Bank to see what could be done with the demise of local bank branches. Thank you.
But something does need to happen.
We'll look into it. Next.
Hi. My question is not about something that was discussed in any of the presentations, but maybe you can help me. Are we able to, as charities, reclaim VAT for something that we purchase for Pathfinders Club, Adventures, or something like that? Any expenses?
90% of things you will buy is no. The answer is no.
Okay. So it's not worth the point to getting back to 10%. Okay.
No.
Got it. Thanks.
So 2 parts of the same question. I don't think the earlier question I asked was really answered. And so I feel like there's a kind of a poverty cycle with some of our smaller churches in the South England Conference in particular because of the cost of property. And so what I was explaining earlier, you've got these small churches, we're spending all this money on renting, and then the policy is that you have to raise at least a minimum of 50% in order to buy your own, and then the gift aid comes in. So then churches who have the capacity to raise far more will reach that goal before us, and then 40% of our gift aid is going into that. Is there a possibility for exceptions for the smaller churches who unrealistically cannot raise 50% of a London property to potentially keep 100% of our gift aid? My point is, what I'm asking for is direct involvement from the conference, because I think these are issues that can't be self-solved for such tiny churches, and yet there's so much money flowing with this rent.
I appreciate your point, but on behalf of the conference treasurers, the same 40% that you're asking to be withheld, when your time does come, that's the same 40% that's needed, that's going from the pots from all the churches that will eventually help you. So the conference is, because if you want to keep your 40%, everybody can then have the argument, well, we want to keep our 40% as well.
Potentially not that as a resolution, but is there something that can be thought of to have some direct intervention? Because it's way too much money being hemorrhaged, and it's just wasted going to external bodies. That if there can there be something discussed? And just on that very quickly.
It's not a question we're going to be able to resolve now. It's a dialogue you're going to have with your conferences. But in reality, it's like if I took a straw poll here, how many people rent, how many buy? There'll be lots of people rent, but the bottom line is affordability. Can I afford? Because the other challenge that small congregations will have, they go into a building that they can't afford to buy. Can they afford to operate it, to maintain it as well? That's the other thing. But if I
probably be cheaper than the rent that we're paying, though. But sorry, just is the Treasury the only strategic, business type role in the church? Because I'm assuming the rest are theological. Is it just the Treasury?
Across the departments, there are various lay. I mean, the one that jumps to mind is Dr. Chidi Nwaba, SEC Health Ministries Director. So not all directors in the
So I think
are.
my additional questions, I'll come to you guys directly. I'm not sure if it really works here, but it's just on the topic of analysis. I understand that we were here last week in this very building with the elders. We're here again this week with treasurers. We're here again next week. So what are our CRES plans? What is our real estate plan? Why have we looked at what the benefit would be to own in a few more buildings versus consistent renting?
Well, we had the North Runcton presentation on Saturday morning.
So I missed it?
Yeah.
All right, then,
okay,
thank you.
Final question.
Can I?
Very quick, very quick.
Yes, can I come in on what Sir Leah, to try to, there's no going back on the 40% or whatever. However, I could remember years ago when I was purchasing a property, what the conference did is that all money that raised within the constraint of that project, I got back 100%. Not the regular gift aid, but the project. So if you're going to buy a building and you raise from the church 200,000 for argument's sake, you can then send it to the conference will claim the gift aid on that, and then they would send back 100% on that 200,000. Is that understood? So that is one way in which we can help. But what you give in your envelope has got to, we have to follow that principle. But extra within that project, the conference can agree with a local church to give back that 100% on that particular sum of money which has been raised for that project.
Final question. Oh. We're losing the delegation here. We're already half a room full already. Final question.
Okay, cool. It's really, okay, one isn't a question, one is a request. You know that presentation that you just done about the expenditure and all the income that came in? Could that be emailed to us so that we can see? Because that was actually presented really quickly.
Which conference are you?
Pardon? Oh, SEC.
SEC. Candy, can you arrange to send out the, maybe when you finalise the December budget control statement to all the treasurers?
Yeah, so that can be done, cool. And then this is my question. I thought it was a really, really good idea that ADRA was doing that 10%, and I thought that was really good. I feel like yesterday when we were having the conversation with regards to tithe and then what Pastor Ines Sweeney preached, and then I said, okay, you know what, it's true. We all did take a baptismal vow, and we did support church policy. But then it kind of, I scratched my head, and then I said, but can't church policy be reformed or something like that? So couldn't there be a way where, just like how ADRA, what we raise can be, 10% can be given back to the local churches, could 10% of what we send be given back to the local churches as well?
As I said...
I was thinking of a compromise there, 'cause I thought that was really good, and that would solve lots of problems.
As I said, there's no other conferences and missions anywhere on this planet that gives more back to its churches because of gift aid than the North-South Conference and the Welsh, Scottish and Irish Mission. There's no other conference that does that on the planet.
That gives back what, sorry?
More to its churches.
Did you say gift aid?
More to its churches
I wasn't
because they don't have gift aid.
Pardon? No. I said the same principle of what ADRA was doing. Could it be applied to the tithe?
No.
Because
in the South England Conference, they are returning best part of £2.5 million pounds back to the conferences. That's a tremendous blessing. As I said, there's no other conference in the world church that does that, anywhere near that. Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Earl. I just have to promote this one because with the question on the church building, especially at the South England Conference, the SEC for the quadrennium have planned to raise 15 million on gift aid. And we are aiming to get that within this for 4 years. But the problem is, at the moment, we only have around 9,000 people who have signed on the gift aid with our membership of 24,000. If we could raise that, the number of people who have signed on the gift aid, then the 2.5 that we are receiving right now on a yearly basis could actually go up, and that would mean we could help more churches buy their church buildings.
Okay, just a few announcements before we close. First of all, Aftab will run a taxi service with his minibus. So what time should we say? 2:15? If it
let's say 1:50.
No. 10 to 2. 10, okay, so Aftab will be with the minibus if you're going to the station at the main entrance at 10 to 2. Okay, that's a taxi. Kerry Ann will have gift aid forms for South England Conference treasurers, so you can take back to promote and encourage gift aid take up in your churches. Sure, Todd, does Todd participate? Is he still here? Todd, Candy, if you just make a note, or Anne, if you just make a note, we need, if you can send us. I've had so many requests for Todd's presentation. If you can, hello, Todd. Todd, I've had a lot of requests for your presentation. Can you email it to? Oh, okay. If you email it to, you got them all. Okay. So Todd's presentation will be sent out to all the treasurers here. There are a few more last extra manuals here. thank you now, yeah. And then finally, just a few thank yous. An event like this takes a lot of organisation. And the three key players in this are Pauline Peck, who is away on the holiday in Cyprus, in Paphos as we speak. But also, if I can invite Lucinda and Voanji to come forward at this time. And, have you got them? They're bringing it, okay. If you can come forward. Voanji, come forward, they can't come together, they're holding hands. You know, it's such a huge headache. You've got 300, the best part, 350 treasurers booking into it, with all the booking forms, liaising back and forth, transportation. Thank you very, very much for all your hard work. If you just give us one, yes. We have a bouquet of flowers for you, which are just. Are they coming? Just hold on a second while I do. I'd also like to, while waiting for them to bring them in, just wait there. Just thank you to Mike, Paul Lee, Ariane, Serena, for your awesomeness with our praise and worship. Thank you all very much, guys. Thank you to all the speakers. Yes. Thank you to all the speakers for your presentations throughout the weekend. The treasury teams of the North, South and BUC, we thank you for all your work behind the scenes as well. And then at this time, Charles, can you present the bouquets to the... Have we got the other one? What's the other one yet? Let's go. Oh, okay, wait a minute. And I just thank you all of you for coming here and taking your valuable time to be with us. To be with us.
Okay, right, while we're waiting for the flowers to come.
One more. And thank you, finally, thank you to my special friends, SEC Media, for your awesomeness this weekend, as always. When I came here, this was like an empty room. And their projector went away, the DeVere screen went away, and they just transformed this whole room. Thank you very, very much, all of you, for your awesomeness. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you to Michael, who played, which was excellent. But really, Earl is an amazing, amazing leader. He is an amazing guy to work with and to work for. He has supported me, because I'm relatively new to the church work, if you can put it that way. All of my experience has been in business primarily, but he has brought me up to speed. He has stepped in for me, especially in times when I've not been well. He's been an absolute servant of God and a servant of the church. This took a lot of organizing, and Earl, I want to, on behalf of every treasurer, every worker, thank every person here and who are not here. Thank you for the outstanding work that you have done in getting this organized, and thank you for the great way in which you run up and down the country. Sometimes you fly, but I know that your task is enormous. But you always have, personally, I really appreciate it. Really do. Thank you so much. You're a great guy.
If you could present the ladies with these bouquets, do you want to pick them up? Go ahead.
My pleasure. Fred should have been here doing this, but he's flying to somewhere sunny. It's terrible. Okay. Who's that? For NEC. Okay, this is for this is my secretary, my PA. She has worked outstandingly. Listen, this lady has got a workload that is amazing. I was even discussing it with one of our treasurers last night. When they heard what she's the secretary and PA for the Treasury Department, she is the same for Sabbath School and Women's Ministry. And if you know, and communication, if you know Beulah, Beulah is one of our directors that never sleep. She never slumbers. She's always working, always training, and this lady has to deliver her secretarial needs. So she's got a handful. So, Voangi, this is like a bit of a handful, but you're worth every ounce of it. Thank you so much.
Okay, before, can we sing one final song? Yeah, or do you want to go? Yeah? Okay. I think